This is Lead Balloons, the alchemy of unpopular opinions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Lead Balloons, the alchemy of unpopular opinions. Here with Joel, I'm Trent. Tonight, what finger is that? It is his ring finger. Tonight, we're doing a podcast called A Couple of Sporting Boys. You can see Joel has ceremoniously worn his jersey. I don't have a jersey on, but I've got a little bit of a sporting logo.
You do.
Don't
name it because they have to pay us money if they want like a sponsorship or something.
Yeah,
like that.
we're not. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you want to sponsor us, we'd be happy to mention you. But
we're big
short
time.
of that, no. So we're going to talk a little bit, kind of about our experience with sports. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about sort of why sports are important, or maybe why they're not important. Pros and cons of playing sports, watching sports. What are people up to when they're debating sports? Is there any like value in doing that? What about participation trophies and how youth sports has maybe changed through the years? Joel, remind us again, talk to us about some of the sports that you grew up playing. I've known you as a pretty darn good golfer. I don't think I've ever been golfing with you, but I know you were really into golf. Tell us a little bit about your experience with golf and other sports that you got into.
Sure. Man, I grew up in a sports family. My dad is an incredible athlete. He was drafted by the Dodgers out of high school. So he then went on to play college ball, and he turned down the Dodgers offer, and then he turned down another offer from the Cardinals, mostly because they wanted to start him in single A, and I think he was playing in college with some other friends that were older than him who went into the minor leagues. And back in the early 70s, you did not get $1 million signing bonuses, right? You had to go live in poverty, basically, traveling from city to city for a couple of years, hoping that you could make it to the big leagues. And he was just engaged to my mom, and they got married, and he decided just to pivot towards business. But he's always been a great athlete. And I have two brothers. I always say we grew up as a baseball family. We definitely played baseball every season. I played, and I stopped playing when I entered high school, but both of my brothers played all the way through high school, and one of my brothers played in college. But I also played basketball. I played football. And then I also played golf. My dad would go and play golf every Saturday morning early. He was like with the group that would go off at the sunrise. And so I would get up with him ever since I was 8. I would get up and go with him. And early on, he would like drop a ball here and there in the fairway and let me kind of swing at it, hack at it. But when I got into high school, that's what I ended up playing was golf for the school. And then I played basketball like at a kind of a boys club league. And I've always loved sports. Intramural sports in college. I love volleyball, love racket sports, racquetball, tennis, pickleball. Over COVID, I picked up disc golf because it's significantly cheaper than playing what the disc golfers call ball golf, which I refuse to say. I just call it golf because I don't call like gasoline cars. I just call those cars, and there's electric cars, and I don't call it ball golf. It's just golf, guys. Golf. I know it's so stupid, but I do love disc golf. It's fun. Oh, what about you, man? What sports did you play? I know you were like you got kind of like a football build, right? Yeah. I know you did that. And what other sports did you play?
Well, growing up, I mean, I was like you. I dabbled in quite a few sports. Some of them organized, and others not. But yeah, I played baseball starting probably at like age 6. A couple of years of soccer, and then got into like flag football and tackle football, which I did. I did baseball and football all the way through to the end of high school. I played basketball growing up. I think my last year playing for the school team was my 8th grade year, and tapered off after that. But had tennis lessons.
Oh wow!
Played a little bit of golf as well. Loved. I mean, just casually playing like ultimate frisbee. I went to a Christian sports summer camp called Kanakuk, where I was introduced to wrestling a little bit. So I mean,
Oh,
I have a chance to yeah, yeah. I
the
played
Gable's grip. Isn't
racquetball and
that called
stuff.
like Gable's grip or something like that? Right?
I don't know what that is. We learned like the half Nelson and
Yeah, yeah.
fireman's carry and these
Uh huh.
kinds of things. So
I did Muay
learned.
Thai for a couple of years,
Uh-huh.
which was like in that MMA world.
Yeah, yeah. So you and I both played quite a bit of sports, and we've dabbled in a lot. What do you think? What is it about us? Do you think, as let's speak generally. What is it about us as humans, and then we'll talk about like us in particular, but as humans that draws us to playing sports, to
Hmm.
just the activity of sports?
I think it's fun. Even like you watch, like one of my favorite comic strips is Calvin and Hobbes, and this little kid Calvin who hates rules, and they still come up with games like Calvin Ball, which has no rules that are always changing or whatever that is. I do think there's, even when it's unorganized, organized or unorganized, there's something fun about it, especially when you're playing with other people, whether it's going out and like doing cornhole or croquet on the lawn. People just enjoy doing that, or the kind of the I think the another aspect of it is the challenge to myself. Golf, for
Mm,
example, is a very like me versus me kind of sport. I'm not playing. I might be playing against someone else in a match tournament,
mm,
but ultimately I'm playing against myself because it's a real head game kind of thing. I'm challenging myself. Or I remember trying out for the basketball team in 8th grade, and I was a late bloomer. So I was like one of the shorter people. I played point
mm,
guard, so I didn't need to be tall, but I was dime a dozen. Everyone was my size and could shoot
mm-hmm.
when I was in
Yeah.
8th grade. And one thing I couldn't do was a left-handed layup. And so
Ah.
on, I remember that whole summer before my 8th grade year, I just did on my driveway. We had a slanted driveway and a basketball goal, and to come from the left meant I was coming
Mm.
like it was more like an 11-foot basket.
Yeah.
I was trying,
Right.
and I just practiced that left-handed layup probably 1,000 times, and it
Wow.
was just me versus me.
Yep.
It's late at night. You hear the locusts, the crickets, and I'm just out there jumping off my right foot, going up with my left hand, and just
Yeah.
practicing that finger roll.
And you got good at it.
I did. I did get
Yet
good at it.
I had the experience. So I started like soccer and casually playing football at an early age. What else? And like t-ball. I was probably in
Oh
kindergarten when I
yeah,
started t-ball. But I didn't really touch a basketball until I remember it was the summer after. I was terrible at like basketball on the playground. And then the summer after my 3rd grade year, my parents sent me to a little basketball camp. It was like a week
yeah,
long camp. It was in Colorado Springs at a high school.
yeah. I did one of
And
those.
at the end, and I would describe myself as a sort of above average athletic person, but not,
Sure.
I was never going to be great at sports. I was always going to be pretty good.
Same,
And
same.
but I could pick things up pretty quickly and get pretty good pretty fast. And at the end of that week, I went from like barely being able to dribble to like dribble with both hands and shoot a layup. And then that summer, I remember being out. We had a basketball goal on the driveway, like a lot of American kids do. And I remember just practicing shooting just to where my fingers were getting all gross from
Yep. Oh
all
yeah.
the sand, the dirt and grit. And I got pretty darn good. And then when I played that winter of my 4th grade year, I was like the best kid on the team. And
Nice.
so it was really fun. You talk about the fun aspect, like achieving a little bit of mastery at a young
Yeah.
age
Uh
at
huh.
something like sports was so rewarding to see. It gave you a sense of confidence for other aspects of life. Like I could
Yeah.
start at zero and become reasonably good within a fairly short period of time.
Yeah. I remember when I played basketball, the boys club, because I didn't try out at my high school. My high school is gigantic. I had a graduating class of 1,000,
Oh
and
my gosh.
there was just no way I was going to make that basketball team. Just no way. I think I was 3 inches shorter than the shortest person. And I was a good shooter, but so were a bunch of other people. So I just loved basketball. So I played in a boys club league that was like, basically like Salvation Army. And
Mhm.
I remember trying out. The way they did it is they had like everyone come out, and the coaches, which were all usually dads, and they had like one or two kids on their team that they got to choose, and then it was just an open draft, and they had to shoot, they had to dribble, and that's where I got to show off a bit my dribbling skills and my 3-point shot and my left-handed layups, and doing the reverse layup with the little spin at the end on the other side of the basket. And I was the first pick from this one guy who wanted me on his team. And that, for whatever reason, I had never seen myself as a really good basketball player, because I was always good enough to be on the good teams, but not good enough to start on the good
Mm.
teams. You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Yep. Yep.
And so I'd sit on the bench of the good teams. And when you got rid of the good teams and they're all like starting in high school, and I go to this kind of league, I'm one of the better ones. And I remember the confidence it gave me. Like, it gave me a sense of
Mm.
like, oh, I'm actually like, it kind of like healed some insecurities,
Mm.
some self-doubt in my own kind of abilities. And I think that's super powerful when you can trust your body's ability. That gives you kind of walk a little taller when that happens.
Mhm. Mhm. Did you ever have any defining moments in your sports career, or even something, I mean, defining meaning good or
Mm,
bad, and maybe specifically, did you have any moments that were really, really frustrating, where you had to grow and you had to learn something and like change as a person?
yeah. I have one of the most visceral memories. Well, I have two of them. That I played for a really good baseball team, and
Mm.
I joined this when I was 9 years old. I played for the first year in my city where they did kid pitch, and
Mm.
we did t-ball, kid pitch, and then t-ball, coach pitch, and then kid pitch.
Uh-huh.
And I played for an average team and was the best player on the team. I was their best
Yeah.
hitter. I think I played third base, and I pitched some. And the best team in the league would always try and like pull good players from other teams. They went on to, back then there was only really rec league and competitive ball. Nowadays there's so many different like
Mm.
layers and levels and whatnot. But this was a team that they asked me to come out and try out, and I actually played for them in the postseason tournament because my baseball team wasn't good enough to make it to the postseason tournament, and so they picked me up to play for their team. And you would see this happening,
Mm.
all the teams in the postseason tournament, they'd have their team with all their uniforms, and there'd be like two or three players wearing different uniforms playing for
Mhm.
their team.
Mhm.
And I
Yep.
was one of
Yep.
those. And I ended up playing for this team. They were called the Patriots. And I played with them from ages 10 all the way to 14 when I started which was eighth grade before I go into high school. And I was always, again, this is similar to the basketball experience. I was on the bench a lot. I didn't start a
Mm.
lot. One of the reasons was the head coach's son played the position that I was best at,
Mm.
which was second base. And so it didn't matter. I remember one year they did, one of the dads, he did all the stats. He kept books for the baseball, and he created stats for every player at the end of the year: your batting average, your on base
Mm.
percentage,
Yeah.
home runs, singles, doubles, triples, all of that. And I was the third highest batting average and the highest on base percentage, and I didn't start. And so that was one thing I just remember. It was
Mm.
teaching me about the politics of reality, that
Mm.
unless you are Ken Griffey Jr., you are not, it's really hard to cut through those politics. You have to be elite for your performance
Mm.
to
Mhm.
really kind of like rise above politics. If you're not elite, you need to have politics to get you there. And that's what I learned from that lesson. And I remember we did a tournament. This was like one of the most heartbreaking moments of as this insecure 13-year-old. We were playing in a tournament. We were staying in hotels, and somewhere in Oklahoma, and we made it to the championship game, which we typically did. And I was usually never in situations where I was needed to be clutch. And it just so happened that I got up to bat with 2 outs. We were tied, and it was an extra innings. And I got up to bat, and I was not like playing well at the time. I just wasn't doing great. And I think the coach didn't even have the option to do a pinch hitter at the time. That's probably what the situation was. There was a guy on first, and the pitcher was like, one of those pitchers when you're like 12, 13 years old that just like scares the bejesus out of you because they just look like a monster because they're shaving already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm up there with my red helmet, and I'm shaking in my cleats, right? And a ball gets thrown low and outside, and I swing at it, and I connect great. I hit it really well. I'm not a power hitter, but I definitely like connected well, and it went to it would have been right center, and so it went all the way. It landed in the middle of the outfielders, went all the way to the fence, and I'm running, and already the crowd is just cheering. The guy who was on first is running. He's a long-legged guy. He's running so hard, and I get to the first base. My first base coach is like, "You did it, Joel! You did it! Like, stay here, stay here!" And so the guy in front of me was rounding third, and they're throwing the ball in. I see that, and there's a play at home plate, and the catcher drops the ball when he tags. He tags and drops the ball, and then picks it up real quick. But the umpire didn't see it and called him out. And everyone was just like, he dropped the ball. And we even like appealed to the other umpire, and he was like, no, he's out, he's out. And it's like everyone saw this, and my opportunity to be the hero just vanished. Vanished. Yeah. The next inning, there was another kid who was the hero, and everyone forgot about Joel's amazing hit. And I just remember that moment, just feeling so unseen, so unacknowledged, and feeling just like so like sad and insecure. And I think when I look back at my experience with sports, it brings up so much of the human experience. Like the ups and the downs. You're dealing with these deeply intense feelings in a very artificial environment. And I think just looking back, that kind of stuff toughened me up. You know what I mean? It helped me change my view on expectations. It helped me kind of learn what to trust, what not to trust. It helped me learn to let things roll off my back. Umpiring and officiating sports did that better for me. But I think back on my sports environment and the errors that I made and the successes that I had. Both of those were equally as instructive. What about you, man? I'm sure you had some pretty gut-wrenching or like put up on the shoulders of your teammates kind of moments. What are yours?
Both. Well, one longer protracted experience that I had was when I was between kindergarten and 5th, 6th grade, but mostly like 3rd and 4th grade. I remember that I was probably the best athlete at my elementary school. Back then, I was super fast. I thought that I was super fast, and I think I was actually pretty fast. And even more than that, I could jump. I could jump really, really well at that age. And so I had like 2 or 3 years where I got to really enjoy, because we'd have the school track meets, and I would win the 50-yard dash and
you're
the long
just bringing
jump.
home all those little ribbons.
Yeah, and in 4th grade, all of the, I think there were four elementary schools in the district, and we all got together at the high school, and I won the 50-yard dash and the long jump. So in my grade, 4 elementary schools, I was the fastest and best jumper. And I remember that was just such a fun feeling, like being seen for that. You talk about not being seen, so being seen. Well, then what happened was, within several years, in 5th grade, I was one of the faster kids, but not the fastest kid at my school. And within about 3 years, I had gone from being the fastest kid to middle of the road. Now, I
Sure.
still was a really good jumper. I always retained a very high vertical jump, but I somehow lost my sprinting speed. And that was a major disappointment for me, because you realize bodies change, right? And for some people that process, is on a different timeline, but all of our bodies change,
Yeah.
and we're not the most athletic person in the room or in the school. It made me think about in high school. There's a gentleman who was the quarterback a year ahead of me, and he was great. He was like an all-state quarterback, went on to play at University of Northern Iowa, and then I think he was even on a pro roster for a couple of years. I think he was like on the practice squad or something like that. But when he played, I saw him play quarterback. I just thought, he throws that football like I would throw a baseball. Like he and I would throw a football and a baseball. I would throw the baseball like he's throwing a football. It was
Hmm.
incredible.
Yeah.
But I realized even he had a day and a moment where he was not the best quarterback in the room. He was probably the best at his university, but when he went to the pro
Yep.
environment, he was just a guy. He
Yep.
became just a guy, a jag,
Yeah.
and that's experience that I had. So I don't. I think the
It's so
takeaway
uncomfortable, right? It's
it
so
was tough, and
uncomfortable. Yeah.
the thing you have to face is that the ephemeralness or ephemerality of life. Life is fleeting,
Ooh.
experiences are fleeting, and enjoy and soak those up while they're there. And then when they're gone, that's just the way it goes. But that was a big lesson for me, because it's not always going to last, Trent. Enjoy the limelight while it's
Bro,
there.
you're a jumper. Could you slam dunk a basketball?
I could not. I
Yeah.
I could stand flat footed and jump off both feet, and I could touch the rim. I could even get a little. I could usually, from a running start, I could dunk a tennis ball. But I
Yeah.
was 5'10" and a half, probably. I think I had
Yeah.
like at a summer football camp. I had a 32-inch vertical.
Yeah.
So it's just funny because that's a Division I vertical jump.
Yeah.
There's most 5'10", 5'11" guys can't dunk a basketball.
Yeah.
Even some of those who are playing on a D1 roster. So I had a D1 vertical, but I did not have D1 speed. That's for sure. I don't know
Yeah,
what
I
happened,
could
but
get maybe my first knuckle grabbing the rim. I just never could jump that high, and I'm about the same. I think 5'10" and a
yeah,
half is exactly where I'm at.
yeah.
That's interesting. So I'm curious, when it comes to like sports for you, man, like what was practicing like? Like I think about
Mm,
my children, and I have two daughters. They've played some team sports, which
yeah.
I kind of wish they would have had more opportunities. My youngest played some soccer. She played volleyball, or not my youngest, my oldest played soccer and volleyball, and she was even on a rowing team. My youngest was always just in the arts. She's done
hmm hmm
ballet, which I guess you could say the camaraderie of a
Yeah.
ballet company is very similar in terms of kind of the dynamics. But neither of them, I would try with like, let's practice. We would do, bump set spike out in the backyard with my
Yep.
daughter, or we try and kick a soccer ball. But they had so little grit in terms of, oh, let's just keep doing it. And when
Uh-huh.
I was a kid, of course, we didn't have phones to distract us. We didn't have the technological availabilities. I did have a Nintendo original NES that distracted me quite a bit. But beyond that, I'm outside and
Yeah.
I'm doing things over and over and over and over again, and just somehow gaining mastery at throwing a knuckleball, or left-handed layup, or a free throw, or throwing a spiral, chipping a ball into a net, whatever it may be, putting down
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
putting down the carpeted hallway onto a cup holder that I made as the cup. Right, those are the things I was just doing over and over and over again. Did you have like, what were your kind of practicing rhythms?
Well, I mean, I don't think I was ever like a super disciplined practicer. Although with baseball, especially in high school, I practiced quite a bit to become I mean, I put in quite a bit of work to become a good baseball player. When I was younger, you know, um, I don't know that I was spending hours and hours. I wasn't that kind of guy when I was younger, hours and hours practicing. But one thing I would get, and this prevails to this day, where I just sort of go down a rabbit hole for a while and exhaust
Sure.
that rabbit hole, you know. But I got really into tennis when I was like, again, 10 years old, and I took a few
Oh.
lessons, and I
Huh.
was following it on TV. And what I would do, I'd go back. We had a back patio that was brick on like all sides, and I would take my tennis racket and tennis ball, and I would hit it against the wall, and I would pretend that I was like playing against, like, back then it was like Stefan Edberg or Boris Becker or John McEnroe, and I would hit. I'd be
Agassi.
like. And like that was Trent's hit, and then that was McEnroe, and there was
Oh
Trent. I'd
yeah.
play like come up with little games in my head, and I would do
Yeah.
that. So I could definitely entertain myself doing that. But yeah, playing. I mean, I played sports. Basically, it would be like pick up football with neighborhood kids, or pick up
Same.
basketball,
Yeah.
throwing the baseball around with cousins and siblings and stuff like that. That's most of what it was. Yeah.
I'm thinking about, like, you're bringing back so many memories of when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, sports were like the language that my family spoke. Like, that was, to this day, still one of the easiest conversations I can have with my dad is about
Yeah.
sports. But when I was little, the kids I was playing with, sports was our language we talked.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember being over at a friend's house. You spend the night over at a friend's house. We might play one of the Nintendo games like Tecmo Bowl or RBI baseball, these old school
Mm-hmm.
sports games. But then we'd go find some space, and we'd have like find some sort of ball. It was a Nerf ball, or it was something a little more substantial. We'd find something to use as a bat, or we used our hands, and we're like playing home run derby or something. All right, you have to make it over the couch, and that's a home run. Or you coming up with all these rules. These very
Yes.
You're just using the environment. Oh, that tree's third base. Whatever. Those are the kind of things you're
Right.
doing. And I remember this vividly. I'm over at a friend's house, and we're inside. It's like 11 at night, 12 at night. Everyone's asleep, and I'm pitching, and we're going back and forth. And there's like, and we have to say, like, who are you right now? Oh, I'm Jose Canseco right now.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm Dennis Eckersley, and I'm pitching to you.
Yes.
Whatever it may be.
Yes.
I love the A's, and so we're going, and we hit it, and he hits it right smack into a shelf filled with his mom's precious moments. If you remember those little porcelain
Oh yes.
figurines, and they come crashing down.
No.
And there's so many broken ones. And that motherfucker, that little kid, blamed it all on me.
No.
It was just like, and I was just like shocked. I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, what?
What? Oh God. Yeah. Well, I think one of the big aspects, like I was asking, why do we get into sports? So there's the competition aspect, there's the growth aspect, there's self-discipline, there's camaraderie. But I also think something that I've thought about, particularly in the absence of playing a ton of sports anymore. I mean, I just hardly get to do anything. I weight train and I go hiking, but like team sports has not really been part of my life for quite a while.
Same.
It's the joy of movement that I find with sports, is just the celebration of and the gratitude in being able to move, being able to change directions and jump and run and throw and ram into somebody, wrestle somebody. Just the joy of being alive and the exhilaration of that is something I definitely miss. And there's other still, sports. Occasionally I'll play a round of golf or throw the Frisbee around, but those are the things I miss. I remember being at ORU and going out on it's April right now, on sunny April afternoon, and throwing the Frisbee around for an hour or so with some friends. That's such a important part of life, such a great part of human life.
Were you a intramurals guy?
Big time into intramurals. Yeah, that was another, just a short story here, but even though intramurals were kind of silly, they still were really fun. And I actually, again, something that I learned, I remember my senior year at ORU, I was a head RA, and so I could kind of play. I think I was allowed to play for basically any team, and so I played for, at that time it was Covenant, was the fourth floor of EMR, whatever it was. So I played for Covenant, and we had a pretty good football team. It was like 7-on-7, flag football, and I remember,
It was
so because I was
serious. It was serious,
It was
though.
serious.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Like there was a game where I almost got into a fight with the guy,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I was, I was big enough to like be a lineman. So I played offensive and defensive line. And I remember we got to like the tournament week right at the end, and we had to like qualify to get in. And then to win the championship, because you start off with like 8 teams in the tournament, we had to play in order to win the championship. We had to play 3 really good teams. Like this will get 2 on the inside, but it was Full Armor and Young Blood, and then Brotherhood was the
Oh, yeah.
championship.
Yeah.
But I remember that week, I knew that I was going to have to dig deep into a level of discomfort that I hadn't before. Like I was like, I know that I'm going to have to be exhausted and play through pain and really endure. And I was so glad that I did. And then there was a couple of guys. There was a guy that squared off across the line for me for every single play one of the games, and he was known. He was a big guy. He hit hard, and it was one of those. I'm like, I'm going to have to take the abuse and deal it out toward him, and I did. We ended up winning the championship, and I got to the end of that week. At the end, after it was all done, I felt really proud that I had decided to take the challenge to toughen up and really go for it. It was really, really fun, even though it didn't matter. But it still was one of those character moments for me. I think.
I'm just imagining a young Trent with his svelte physique and all the hair on top of his head, and he's just doing what his Lord asks him to do, and just like
Yes,
die to himself, and
that's
just
right.
like put
That's right.
put your body on the line, crucify the flesh, and then you
Yes,
got your heavenly reward. And it looked
sure
like a
did.
plastic trophy and a bunch of dudes bragging to a bunch of other dudes, and none of it mattered.
You know what? Screw you. Screw you.
One of my favorite moments was playing in your. I mean, I rarely played on good floors. For those of you who are out there, Christian colleges don't have frats. So this one, or Roberts, they had like floors, and everyone was like, they had their own name, their own identity,
Yep.
whatever. I played on a floor though one year. Then we had a freshman who was a high school like championship quarterback. He
Oh,
was
wow.
so good. He could throw it forever and throw dimes, just dimes. And I was one of the better people on the team that could run routes and had good hands. So I was the receiver, the primary go-to receiver, and we made it to the playoffs, but we didn't go super far. But it was so fun because we had a bit of a ragtag team, like a Bad News Bears kind of like
Yeah. Yeah.
situation with just a couple good players.
Yeah.
And we just like made it happen somehow. And I ran a post corner where it looks like you're running up and you post in and then you pivot out to the corner of the end zone. And it was like a huge, long, probably a 30 to 40 yard, maybe longer throw. And I caught it like just in the tips of my fingers as I'm crossing the goal line. And that won that game to get us into the playoffs. And I felt like $1 million. I was just like,
Yes.
oh my
Yeah.
God, I am. You know that feeling where you just, it's almost primal, right? It's
Yes.
primal. It's like
Right.
like you're a gorilla who just took down another gorilla, and now you're the apex gorilla, and those are the feelings that you're just beating
Yes.
your chest, and woo, it's addictive. That feeling is no wonder some of those dudes just lost their mind trying to like win a game that didn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So on this topic of like things not mattering, you remind me of something that I love to do that I think about kind of as like an intellectual exercise, and that is like to debate sporting topics
Okay.
with friends and family. And I want to know what if you engage in those debates and or what you think about them, why people do them. Is there any value to like having a sports debate?
Yeah, I think you're talking about like GOAT debates, like who's the
Yeah,
greatest
people
of all
arguing,
time.
okay, what was the best team, or was this? Yeah, is
Yeah.
this person the greatest of
Which
all
dynasty
time?
is it? Is it the Celtics? Is it the Lakers? Is it the Bulls?
Yes.
Yeah, whatever.
Yep.
Or are we talking about Joe Montana? Are we talking about Brady? Who
Mm-hmm.
LeBron or MJ?
Right.
Whatever. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
all those kind
Yep.
of. I do think they're fun. I don't know enough about stats to have an intelligent argument. Um, I just openly say this is the person I watch the most and care about the most, so they're the best. Just like,
Yeah.
dude, Saquon Barkley is the best running back. I'm like, no, Barry Sanders is.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
it's Barry. I could watch Barry Sanders like highlights of him all day. Saquon's great, but like Barry
Yeah.
Sanders, no question. I don't really give good answers for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not like the Moneyball arguer that you would see like people on ESPN and these talk shows with people yelling at each other. I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool that you have that opinion, but it's Barry. It's Barry Sanders.
It's Barry. It's Barry. Yeah. 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 I confess that I get way too in the weeds with these debates. I find myself
All
thinking
right,
about them. I watch quite a bit of like
let's have
sports
one.
talk radio. Huh?
What's one of your favorite GOAT debates? And I'm going to argue with you.
LeBron MJ.
All right, who do you go with?
If you made me pick, I would say LeBron.
Okay. Well, LeBron is riding in the wakes that MJ made for him, right? LeBron just like jumps around to different teams. He's more of an entrepreneur who's just seeking opportunities for money. Whereas MJ stayed true. He was committed. He was definitely mentally like difficult to deal with. But like LeBron, come on. The guy in his hair plugs, come on, give me a break.
Listen, yes, I would question the commitment of LeBron, because I would think about the time when he retired for the first time to go play baseball. And then I would think about the time that he retired again and then came back and had a couple of average seasons. Oh, wait, that was MJ.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's right. Well,
No,
it's hard it's hard for LeBron to be the first person to be a global celebrity. Oh, wait, he wasn't the first. He wasn't even close.
MJ.
Michael Jordan was the first global celebrity that this world has ever known. All right, so mic drop.
Yeah, that's good, dude. I love that. That is a little bit of a sample of what it's like. But I think with that one, it's funny because I mean, I do genuinely, I think I would give LeBron the slight edge. But I think what it reveals for me, that whole debate, as well as other sports debates, when I suspect that people are overselling something or overplaying their hand, then my antenna raise up and I start saying, why is it that people are getting so protective of a certain mythology or of a certain legacy? Now, you could easily make a case that like Jordan is the best player ever. And
Yeah.
that probably is the case, but
We haven't even mentioned Kobe.
yeah, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But when people start to say things like "there's no debate," you're like, well, no, there's definitely a legitimate debate that we can make, because there are things on the basketball court that Michael did better than LeBron, and there are things that LeBron did better than Michael. Then it comes down to how much weight and how are you going to make this objective? It's almost impossible to do that.
Yeah.
But to the extent you can, you have to look at statistics and then compare things and then say, well, how much do you value this particular stat? Jordan had more points per game throughout his career than LeBron did. LeBron had more assists per game.
Yeah.
This is where it's sort of revealing of the culture too, is Michael Jordan was seen as sort of this relentless scorer. Give me the ball at all times, I'll take it kind of guy.
Yeah.
Whereas LeBron was more comfortable being a facilitator. We're not interested in people being facilitators. We want somebody who's the alpha dog, can come in and just destroy everybody. That's sort of more appealing to our sensibilities. So that's something that's revealed. That's why I'm so fascinated with these debates, because they reveal so much about human psychology.
Yeah, and
when
about
you really
us.
dig in.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, I think my opinion will say more about me than it's about Michael Jordan. The truth
Yeah.
is, I watched sport. I watched Sports Center every morning in high school. Every morning before school, I
Yeah.
played video game. I played Jordan versus Bird. That was my video game.
Yes.
I watched and cheered for the Bulls. As they won championship after championship, I would doodle on my folders in school and learn to draw the Bulls logo. All that is so in me. It creates this bias. So of course I'm going to say MJ is the best. I watched The Last Dance on Netflix 3 times.
Yeah. 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 Oh
So
my. Wow.
so
Yeah.
I get it. I
Yeah.
I can I know fully well that I have an extraordinary bias. The problem is most people who are debating this topic don't see their bias either. That's what I think
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
genuinely. I heard one guy just saying like Kobe is the best, and he just started listing off stat after stat after stat, and then I just said, "Where'd you grow up, man?" Oh, L.A.
LA.
Cool.
I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate that assholery. Well, yes, that's the thing. I could very readily make a case, in my opinion, a rock solid case for why MJ is the GOAT.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of it does come down to the way that people feel about a thing.
yeah,
Not that there's not good evidence, but the way that people feel about a thing is because I see this, and maybe this will happen with LeBron after he retires 10 years down the road. The mythology that creeps in gets even bigger than the person's
yeah.
career. So you remember things. This happened with like Bo Jackson, where
Oh my God, I
people were
love Bo
making claims
Jackson.
about him that might not have been true. Oh, he hit a ball and it had to have gone 700 feet. It's like
It bounced off the
that
moon.
it bounced off the moon. He jumped 30 feet in the air one day. I was like, what? So the mythology tends to grow.
Yeah,
But I love this stuff.
I
Absolutely
do
love
love
it.
Bo Jackson. I am
Yes.
so sad that Bo Jackson's career was cut short by injury. I think
Yes.
that
What
guy
a
was
sad.
truly a phenom.
Well, this is okay. So this is another reason why people ask me, why do you watch sports? Okay. I will watch sports if my team is playing, like the Kansas City Chiefs, or if there's a particular player, like an individual sports that I'm really
Kansas
into.
City
So,
Chiefs. Oh my gosh, what a fair weather fan.
well, I am from Springfield, Missouri, and rooted for them for 30 years, 35, 40 years. So, but anyway, uh, anyway,
Oh yeah,
um,
I happen to be a Chiefs fan now while they're
I'm a Chiefs.
winning.
So, but yeah, if there's a compelling storyline or an interesting player or somebody or a transcendent athlete. So I think of Tiger Woods. I think of
Mm-hmm.
nowadays Shohei Ohtani. I'm interested in seeing somebody who might be the best we've ever seen.
Yeah,
That's a reason is you get the sense that you're like looking at somebody who's larger than life. And when you watch Bo Jackson, you thought, and probably not wrongly, this may be the greatest athlete that
yeah,
we've ever seen. Not that
yeah,
there weren't better athletes 3,000 years ago or something, but it's the best we have ever had access to. To
yeah,
see somebody like that, and then it's all over. I mean, that
yeah,
was remarkable.
yeah. That's how I feel about like I've met Dirk
Mm,
from the Mavs. I've
yeah,
because I live here in Dallas, and he is maybe the darling of Dallas. I don't think there will be
yeah,
anyone in Dallas that is more beloved. Not Troy Aikman, not Tony Romo, not Michael Irvin, not Mike Madonna from the Stars. There's some
yeah.
really great athletes here. Jason Kidd,
Dirk.
but Dirk, man, that guy like was
Yeah,
so amazing at what he did, and
yeah.
he looked like every time he's running that surely his legs are going to snap. He's just like it's like his limbs are so freaking long.
Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah.
But I loved watching him. But like then you got like today you got like Nikola Jovic, right? And he's just
Jokic,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, he's just
Insane.
murdering the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's and we haven't even seen his full potential yet. But what's so interesting to me is when I think about all these conversations in these debates, like you said, there's so many different ways to look at it. Which stats
Hmm.
matter? I don't know. Did you ever see the movie Moneyball with
Well,
Brad Pitt?
Moneyball is, I think, I'll let you get back to it real quickly. Let me say this. I think Moneyball, for even if you didn't know anything about sports or weren't even really into sports, you like that movie. It's such a compelling movie.
Yeah, it was really, really well done. And it's one of those uncomfortable things because when you start looking at sports through that lens, it almost takes away the heart of sports because
Mm-hmm.
it's not really about anymore about like courage and grit. It's more about calculation
Mm-hmm.
and like hedging your bets. And it feels like playing the stock market more than it does like playing a
Yeah.
sport. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching that being so like interested and also uncomfortable about these new ways of looking at sports and these, and I think it's changed sports forever, the Moneyball perspective, which is
Mm-hmm.
why we have people like LeBron who are like, I'm gonna leave my hometown Cleveland and go hook up with Dwayne Wade, and we're gonna win some championships. You know, it's more very like individual calculism. You know, it's not about the team as much anymore. Like, it's hard for me to root for a team anymore because it's significantly different roster every year.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
only thing that stays the same is the color of the jerseys,
Yeah.
and sometimes even that changes every week.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What are your favorite sports movies, Trent?
I mean, Moneyball, I put in my top 10.
Okay.
I would say that Hoosiers ends up in
Mm,
there. I would say that Miracle, the hockey
okay.
movie about
Yeah.
the 1980 men's hockey team, U.S. men's hockey team, was fantastic. I would put, let's see, I think about The Natural.
Oh God,
I think
great movie.
about a great movie. Yeah, those are some of the really good ones.
I
God,
love
refresh my
baseball
memory.
movies.
Huh?
Baseball movies are my favorite, but
Yes.
Field of Dreams is up
Field
there.
of Dreams. I
Oh my God,
rewatched that a couple months ago. Great movie.
it's
A great
so
movie.
amazing, and I love The Natural. Sandlot, one of my favorite movies as
Yeah.
well. But if I were to go football, Rudy is one of my favorites. I love Rudy. I
Okay.
also
Yeah.
I also love The Program, which is a college football movie that I think is Epps is fantastic in that movie. Basketball Hoosiers is a great one. I
Yeah.
love Blue Chips is also a
Blue
really good
Chips.
one. Yep. Hockey, Mighty Ducks, bro. Come
Mighty
on.
Ducks. Solid movies. Solid movies. Yeah. Love the Mighty Ducks. Ain't worth winning if you can't win big.
That's right, bro.
Um, yeah, that was solid. What else? Football. Friday Night Lights. I saw fairly
That's a good
recently.
one.
That's a
Yeah,
pretty good,
yeah,
pretty solid movie.
yeah.
Um, yeah, some really good ones. Old school track and field movie, Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of Fire.
If you
Yeah.
can't,
When I
if I
run,
can't,
God made me for a purpose. He made me for China. But he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure.
and then his opponent who said, "If I can't win, I won't run." And the lady
Mm-hmm.
says, his girlfriend, I think, says to him, "If you won't run, you can't win."
Oh, yeah.
That
Boom.
was that was a solid movie.
Sports is such a great analogy for life. I think
Yeah,
it's
it is.
just like get in the game. I was actually in a program not long ago. It's called Landmark Forum. Really beautiful program that helps with like self-limiting beliefs and helps with like
Mm-hmm.
mental states of being. But that's the metaphor they use.
Yeah.
Is it's like get in the game. Most people are in the stands doing commentary on the players. But
Yes.
life is about getting down on the court and actually being willing to put yourself on the line, making yourself vulnerable to mistakes and vulnerable to successes. And I think it's such a great metaphor for life. The difference between, we talk about armchair quarterbacks, right? It's so easy to criticize people while we're sitting in our living room. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I'm reminded of like the Teddy Roosevelt quote. It's not the man, it's the man who's in the arena who's
In the
fighting it
arena?
out. I mean, just the
Yeah.
beautiful way he talks about the man in the arena, who's bloodied and who's failed. That's the man who deserves the credit. I think that's exactly right. It's about getting in the game. There's some people I've come across who do not watch sports. They say, I will play sports. I don't watch them, and they just don't like the idea of not participating and just watching an event. I think that we resonate with the big moments in great sporting stars' lives. They somehow connect with some of the moments we have. Whatever you think about Tiger Woods, obviously he's probably arguably the greatest golfer of all time. Some
I
people would
love
say
Tiger
Jack
Woods.
Nicklaus,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
right up
Jack
there with Jack
Nicklaus.
Nicklaus.
Yeah.
And
I was
so
always a Freddie Couples fan. He's not the greatest golfer, but I love Freddie
Freddie
Couples.
Couples, yeah,
He's my
Freddie
guy.
Couples, solid golfer. So, but with Tiger Woods, he had that basically 10 or 11 year stretch where he was utterly dominant, more dominant than any golfer's ever been over a 10-year stretch. And then the personal issues and the health issues, comes back in 2019 and he wins the freaking Masters at like age 43 or 44, whatever it is, wins the Masters. Like, that moment was so incredible because you could, there was a part of you that just was able to connect with that, of having all these failures, having all these frustrations, and then having this one moment of culminated glory. We just found that was one of the most compelling sports moments I remember in my entire
It's
life.
like watching The Rookie with why am I forgetting his name? Who's in the the baseball movie The Rookie? What, I'm gonna Google it. I'm forgetting his name now. He's in everything.
Was that Clint Eastwood?
No.
No.
It's
Dennis Quaid.
It's
yes,
like
where
Dennis.
he's picked up. He's picked up as an older pitcher. Yeah. Yep.
I love that movie, and you just you feel like it's compelling, right? It's super compelling. Yeah. So here's what I want to talk about: sports psychology. We're wrapping up some time here, and this is one thing I want to get to. So there's a book out there. I think sports psychology is fascinating because ultimately it's about our minds, and the way we use our minds impact performance. I listen to a guy named Peter Crone all the time, and he is they call him the mind architect, and he works a lot with high performing athletes. But one of my favorite books is called Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. And it's by one of the earlier kind of sports psychologists that are out there. And this is a guy named Dr. Bob Rotella, I think is his name, Dr. Bob Rotella, and he's a psychologist. And he became really kind of on the scene during the days of like Tom Kite and Ernie Els. We're talking about like early to late 80s golfers.
Yeah.
And his book is so fascinating. So there are two things I want to present to you, and I would love to your feedback. So one, he talks about trust it and train it, then trust it. So you practice when you're in practicing mode, you're learning muscle memory. You're learning just how to be confident with your movement and your intentions. But once you get out there on the course, you just trust the practice. You're not trying to do anything new out there. You're not trying to do something different and adjust. It's just you trust the training. And he talks about how this and also you had to have this, like a good golfer is confident. They know they're going to make the putt, but they're perfectly okay after they miss it. It's this ability to be determined, but also a little bit apathetic. It's an interesting kind of dynamic. So the train it and trust it is one idea I would put in your hopper. And the other one, in one of his chapters, he talks about interviewing a really good athlete. I don't even remember his name. He was like a punter in the NFL. So it's just one of these guys that's just a really good athlete. But in high school, he was the star basketball player. And he tells a story. This guy tells a story at a workshop to people around sports psychology. And the guy who was the punter in the NFL, but also a star basketball player in high school, he talks about they were in the championship game, and he was their leading scorer. He was their best shooter. Yet he was having a terrible game, and he kept missing and missing and missing. And somehow their team played good defense, and they still made it like to overtime. And it was one of those moments we see in basketball all the time where they do a timeout and there's like a final shot, and you make it, you win, you miss it, you lose. And the coach hesitated on giving the ball to their best shooter because he was having a bad night, and started to like look at their second best shooter. And this guy was like, "No, coach, give me the ball. I want the ball." And thankfully, the guy who was, he was a senior and the other guy was a junior, was like, "No, give him the ball." And so everyone was asking, like, "How did you feel so confident to like get the ball? You weren't shooting well." And he said, "Well, here's how I think about it. I'm a 50-50 shooter. Every time I miss a shot, I'm more likely to make the next one. And I've missed a lot. So I'm definitely going to make this shot." And they were like, "Oh, crazy." And then someone else says like, "Sir, so what if you make a bunch of shots? Doesn't that mean you're going to miss a bunch?" And he's like, "Oh no, if I'm making a bunch of shots, that means I'm on a hot streak and I can't miss." And someone was like, "You can't have it both ways." And he's like, "It's just in my brain." "What do you mean?" "I'm just creating things for myself."
Yeah, yeah.
And he goes out and he makes the shot. So ultimately, what we learn from sports psychology, it's not about logic. It's about how to get yourself into a space of just confidence, a feeling of just trusting yourself, and being okay with whatever the outcome is. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're speaking of paradoxes here. It's you have to care so much that you will do the training, because if you don't do the training, you can't start playing the mind games that the basketball player was playing. If he'd never practiced basketball, he never got to that place. So you
Sure.
have to care to do the work, and then somehow let go of all that care and all that white knuckling and just fall into it. I mean, you're introducing the concept, which I'm sure you're familiar with, of the flow state. And
Mm-hmm.
we should definitely do a podcast on it. I think we
Oh, I love
will.
that.
There's a book that I read, maybe not all of it, but enough to kind of get the gist of it, by a guy named Edward Slingerland, called Trying Not to Try. And
Mm-hmm.
Slingerland, I think, is a scholar of East Asian philosophy and East Asian religions. And he talks about the paradox of sort of the Confucian way in which discipline is emphasized, and rote learning and methodical training. And then you have like the Tao, Zen masters and things like that, who teach you sort of phrases like effort wu wei, the concept of effortless action, or trying not to, or the non-doing. And so that's where
Mm-hmm.
he gets his title from, the paradoxical title of Trying Not to Try. It's paradoxical because you have to apply yourself with great fervor, but in the moment of truth, then it all has to fade out, and you have to just be totally absorbed in what you're doing. And that's the age-old question. But this would be so fun to keep talking about this, and talking about our stories of when we might have experienced flow. But that is the $1,000,000 pursuit, is how do we get into flow state and take all of our training, but overcome all of the anxiety and the desire to perform perfectly.
Man, I want to say three things real quick. Just three. One, what I hear you saying there reminds me of the movie. I think it's called, golly, The Perfect Game, or For the Love of the Game. That's what it is. For the Love of the Game, with Kevin Costner. He's a pitcher, and he's pitching, and he does this thing where he says, "Turn on the mechanism," and then the cinematography shifts to where everything fades, and it's just him and the catcher, and he's just pitching to the catcher, even though there's thousands of people around him. The game's on the line, and he's the person with the ball. It's just like this sense of just focus that some people have incredible ability around. Two people may have the same physical ability, but one has that mental ability, and they are extraordinarily more successful. So I think the psychology is very important. And I've learned this from a guy named Peter Crone, who I listen to a lot.
Yeah.
And he tells a couple stories. One, he talks about a baseball player that was one of his clients, called him like before a game from the parking lot, and was just like, "Man, I'm still struggling, man." Apparently this guy had gone almost a whole year without hitting a home run. It was like, that end of, that last half of one season, the first half of one season. And he started getting kind of ribbed in the locker room by people. You're not a power hitter. It's okay, bro. You're not a power hitter. And he's feeling like down on himself. And ultimately what Peter Crone did with him on the phone was like get him to a deep place of acceptance. of saying, what if you never hit another home run? Can you be okay with that? And it took a while to get him there because these are high-end athletes and their team depends on them. They're being paid a lot of money. But he said, yeah, I can be okay with that. And that night he hit a home run.
Wow. Yeah.
There's something about like resistance to reality that actually impacts our performance is really what Peter Crone's kind of talking about. When you're just like tense, you don't perform as well. When you're a high-end athlete, you have to be in that flow state to perform effectively. And he tells a story of being hired. He lived in LA area, and he says, and he tells the story in a way to where he doesn't reveal who it is, but it's definitely Shaquille O'Neal. He's talking about a guy who like had a very low free throw percentage, and and apparently was like 50 something percent. And he's like, I'm letting my team down, whatever. And he says, I'm sitting there in the kitchen with this man. And I said, what if I told you next year you're going to shoot 80% free throw percentage? And he said his face just lit up. And he just smiled and said, that would be amazing. And he said, what I just did for you was I gave you a possible future.
Yeah.
You've been worried that you're going to miss things, which makes you miss things. But if you can like believe in a future that is like positive and good, you're probably going to like perform better. You may not get 80%, but you're definitely not going to you're definitely going to be a better state of being. So it's just like, those are the kind of things that I think about sports that are so applicable to life, because we get so in our heads and we sabotage so much of our interactions, our relationships, our work, whatever it may be. We're constantly sabotaging ourselves here. And we think it's all about the doing, but really it's about the thinking, the being, and the state of being.
Man, that's fantastic stuff. And this sounds like something that we could go on for hours and hours. I think we've definitely got fodder for future podcasts. So thanks for bringing your A game, buddy. And with that, folks, we are going to say goodbye for this episode of Lead Balloons, the Alchemy of Unpopular Opinions. You can find us at leadballoonspod.com. Email us at leadballoonspodcast@gmail.com. Find our YouTube channel under Lead Balloons Podcast. We're also on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And there you go. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
See you all later, guys. And if you need a physical trainer, contact Trent.